Senior Research Director Hal stood frozen in the observation chamber, her four compound eyes blinking in rapid succession as she processed what she was witnessing on the holographic display. The footage showed a small human child, no more than 5 solar cycles old, sleeping peacefully with its face pressed against the fur of a creature that the Galactic database classified as lupus. The animal's jaws, lined with teeth designed for tearing flesh and crushing bone, rested mere centimeters from the child's vulnerable throat. "This cannot be accurate," Hal whispered to her research assistant, who stood beside her with his tentacles wrapped tightly around his data tablet. "Run the verification protocols again. There must be an error in the footage compilation." Bioluminescent spots flickered with anxiety as he tapped the tablet. "Director, I have already this footage 17 times. It is authentic. The human child is indeed sleeping with a descendant of the apex predator species known as wolves. The humans call this variant a German Shepherd." The research facility orbiting the human planet Earth had been established 3 standard years ago, when the Galactic Council decided that humanity required extensive study before being granted full membership status. What the alien scientists had discovered in those 3 years had shattered nearly every assumption they held about intelligent species and their relationship with the natural world. Hal moved closer to the display and activated another file from their extensive research database. This footage showed an elderly human female sitting in a chair with a creature called a domestic cat positioned on her lap. The cat was purring, a sound that indicated contentment, while the human stroked its fur with obvious affection. The database reminded Hal that domestic cats were descended from a solitary ambush predator that still retained 95% of its wild hunting instincts. "The humans allow these creatures inside their dwelling structures," said, his voice carrying notes of disbelief. "They sleep in the same beds. They share food from the same preparation areas. They even allow them near their offspring during the most vulnerable developmental stages." Hal pulled up statistical data on her own console. The numbers were staggering. Humans kept approximately 470 million dogs and 370 million cats as what they called pets or companion animals. These numbers did not include the various other predatory species humans had brought into their homes, such as ferrets, snakes, and birds of prey. The sheer scale of this behavior indicated that it was not an aberration, but a fundamental aspect of human psychology. "Summon the full research team," Hal commanded. "We need to discuss these findings before submitting our report to the Council." Within the hour, 12 scientists from 7 different species had gathered in the main conference chamber. Hal stood at the head of the long table, her presentation materials projected on the wall behind her. The assembled researchers represented some of the finest minds in the galaxy, yet all of them appeared equally disturbed by what they were about to discuss. "Colleagues," Hal began, "we have spent considerable time studying human social structures, their history, their technology, and their biological characteristics. However, I believe we have overlooked perhaps the most significant indicator of their species' psychological profile. Humans do not merely tolerate predators. They actively seek them out, bring them into their most intimate spaces, and form emotional bonds with them that rival their connections to other humans." Doctor, a reptilian scientist from the system, raised a clawed hand. "Director, surely this behavior must have originated from practical purposes. Perhaps they initially domesticated these animals for hunting assistance or pest control, and the emotional attachment developed later as an unintended consequence." "That was my initial hypothesis as well," Hal admitted, "and there is some truth to it. The domestication of wolves began approximately 15,000 Earth years ago, and humans did use these early dogs for hunting and protection. However, the evidence shows that emotional bonding was present from the very beginning. Humans did not simply use these animals as tools. They buried them with ceremonial care. They depicted them in their earliest art. They mourned them when they died." She activated a new display showing ancient human burial sites, where dogs had been interred alongside their human companions, sometimes with more elaborate care than the humans themselves received. The relationship evolved over thousands of years, Hal continued. Humans selectively bred wolves to be more docile, more attentive to human emotional states, and more dependent on human care. They essentially created a new species designed specifically for companionship. The modern dog is not merely a tamed wolf. It is a creature that has been fundamentally altered to love humans. Added his own observations. We have documented cases where dogs have refused to leave the graves of deceased human companions, remaining for years until their own deaths. We have recorded instances of dogs traveling vast distances to return to human family members. The bond appears to function in both directions with equal intensity. A scientist named Myra's, whose species resembled tall praying mantises, clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. This is deeply troubling from an evolutionary perspective. On my world, we maintain strict separation from predatory species. Our ancestors spent millions of years developing defenses against such creatures. The idea of voluntarily sharing living space with them would be considered a form of madness. As it would be on most worlds, agreed Doctor. The maintain hunting reserves where dangerous animals are contained, but no citizen would dream of bringing one into their home. It would be suicide. Hal nodded. Yet humans not only survive this behavior but appear to thrive because of it. Our medical analysis shows that human blood pressure decreases when they interact with their companion animals. Their stress hormones reduce. Their overall psychological health improves measurably. The presence of these predators in their lives makes humans healthier and happier. She pulled up another series of images. These showed humans engaged in various activities with their dogs and cats. A man running through a park with a large dog bounding beside him. A woman reading a book while a cat slept curled against her side. A family gathered around a dinner table with two dogs lying at their feet, eyes watchful but content. Consider what we are seeing here, Hal said. The humans are not afraid. They are not constantly vigilant. They have achieved a state of complete trust with creatures that could, in theory, kill them at any moment. And that trust appears to be entirely justified. Attacks by companion animals on their human families are statistically insignificant. Young researcher K, a gaseous being contained in a specially designed suit, spoke up through his translation device. Director, I have been studying the neurological data. When humans interact with their companion animals, both species release a hormone called oxytocin. This is the same chemical that facilitates bonding between human parents and their offspring. The humans have essentially hacked their own biology to create family bonds with predators. Not just predators, interjected. Any animal they encounter becomes a potential companion. We have documented humans forming emotional attachments to spiders, scorpions, sharks, and even large reptiles capable of killing them with a single bite. There appears to be no predator too dangerous for humans to attempt befriending. The room fell silent as the implications settled over the assembled scientists. Finally, Doctor spoke again. I believe I understand why this matters beyond mere academic curiosity. The Council sent us here to assess whether humans would be suitable members of galactic civilization. We were looking for signs of aggression, territorial instincts, and potential threats they might pose to other species. Exactly, Hal said. We were watching for danger, but perhaps we were looking in the wrong direction. She changed the display to show historical records of first contact events throughout galactic history. Most had been cautious affairs, with species maintaining careful distance until trust could be established over generations. The typical pattern involved formal diplomatic exchanges, carefully controlled environments, and gradual integration over centuries. When humans encounter a new species, Hal explained, their first instinct is not fear or aggression. Their first instinct is to determine whether they can befriend it. Their history with predators suggests that they will approach other intelligent species the same way. They will look for common ground. They will seek emotional connection. They will attempt to build bonds that transcend biological differences. Myra's mandibles clicked rapidly. You are suggesting that their tendency to domesticate predators is a preview of how they will interact with alien civilizations. I am suggesting more than that. Humans do not domesticate through domination alone. They domesticate through mutual benefit. Dogs gained food, shelter, and protection. Humans gained companionship, assistance, and emotional fulfillment. Both species evolved together, each becoming more suited to the other. This is not conquest. This is partnership. Brought up one final piece of data. There is something else worth noting. In human warfare, which we have studied extensively, dogs have served alongside human soldiers for thousands of years. They detect dangers, provide comfort in terrifying situations, and often sacrifice themselves to protect their human partners. The humans, in turn, show the same loyalty. There are countless recorded instances of soldiers risking their lives to save their canine companions. This is the nature of the bond, Hal concluded. Humans form connections that inspire mutual sacrifice. Once a human considers you part of their pack, their family, their tribe, they will defend you with the same ferocity they reserve for their own offspring. The predators understood this instinctively 15,000 years ago. Perhaps it is time the Galactic Council understood it as well. Doctor leaned back in his chair, his scales shifting color as he processed this new perspective. You are recommending full membership, then? Hal displayed one last image on the screen. It showed a human child laughing while a massive dog licked her face, the child's arms wrapped around the animal's neck without fear. Behind them, a cat watched from a windowsill, its tail flicking lazily in the sunlight. I am recommending that we recognize humans for what they are, Hal said. They are not conquerors or destroyers. They are the species that looked at wolves in the frozen wilderness and saw potential friends. They are the species that took deadly hunters and turned them into beloved family members. They are, perhaps, the greatest diplomats the galaxy has ever produced, because their first instinct when encountering something dangerous is to find a way to love it. She turned to face her colleagues directly. The question is not whether humans are suitable for galactic civilization. The question is whether galactic civilization is ready to be domesticated by humanity. Because based on our research, that is precisely what will happen, and I suspect in the end we will thank them for it. The conference room remained silent as the scientists contemplated a future where humanity's strange, beautiful, terrifying capacity for love would reshape the very nature of interstellar relations. Somewhere below them, on the blue planet spinning peacefully in the void, millions of humans were at that moment stroking the fur of descendants of wolves and listening to the contented purrs of tiny tigers, completely unaware that this simple act of affection had just changed the course of galactic history.